The ideal home for me would be a place where her friends and our families can gather together in a space that is nice and open.
Yeah, and for me, it's really about having a space to call our own, because having been married for 3 years, we've been living with our parents. So we wanted a space just for ourselves to kind of relax at the end of a long day. We wanted like a really long wooden table so that it can be multi-purpose. We have our meals here, entertain our guests here. But everyone's favorite spot of the house is right here in the balcony, because we custom made a neon sign that says "Pusui Pupui" here, and that basically means if you're not drunk enough, you're not allowed to go home. So that's really kind of like what we live by.
Our motto for all the friends and family members who are coming over to hang out.
And this is of course the best spot to get a good view of the whole of Singapore. Location is actually one of the top factors that we looked at.
What I really like about Homeowners is also that you have a whole range of different places you can visit. And as you walk through the neighborhood, you can also see there's a lot of activity going around.
The search was actually quite a long one. We looked at about 10 to 15 units over a course of 4 to 5 years. And it's because we've been looking at resale versus new developments.
Eventually, we did find something that we really liked. So we made a few offers. And every time the responses always came back with higher prices. So then we were like, okay, where is our cap? At what point do we know the valuation is correct for us, or or are we overpaying for the property?
Yeah. When we finally pinned down this property that we wanted, then comes the practical part of actually purchasing the unit itself. It gets a little bit complicated for us because Mark is self-employed, so it was not as simple as how other people secure loans.
There was also a certain level of urgency with this because there were only 2 units left at the size that we wanted.
It was really dramatic. So we were the last ones in the show flat, just trying to figure out whether we could not only secure the unit that we wanted,
secure the loan in time.
That's right.
Is one of the things,
In this case, we really have what we love about the neighborhood, plus the location, and of course the space that we can have. So that really tick all the boxes for us in finding that perfect home.
Thank you everyone for being here together with us tonight for this special webinar itself. And we're going to share some special tips by our CEO, 3 things we need to know about how to navigate an uncertain property market. Actually, a lot of people will be asking, how's the market? How comes the answers given by a consultant may vary? Because everybody's needs are different. The market is the same actually for everyone. The factors, the conditions are the same. It's just like the ocean. But each and every one of us individuals were just like a vessel. Each vessel have different capacity, different depth that we go to, different mileage that we can reach, which is why everybody have to take note of certain different criteria to navigate the ocean itself, even though the ocean may be the same. So tonight I can see there's 1,300 of you on a Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. So our CEO is ready. He prepared a lot of facts and figures tonight and a lot of insights. In fact, I think after the last round of consumer seminar, a lot of people feedback to us and say that they wanted more things in depth as well. That's why we curated a special series that's going to be anchored by our CEO, none other than our CEO himself, so that he can share more in depth with everyone. So without much further ado, I'm going to invite my CEO, Mr. Ismail Gafoor, to come on center stage to share with everyone. CEO sir, over to you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, it's really amazing. And to have a second session, I think exactly 2 weeks ago, if I remember it rightly, I think 18th of April, time seems to be moving fast for me because we are really very busy. Okay, let me try to go and share the screen and let's see what we have for today. Okay, I promise you that I try not to make it too long, but at least I try to make within an hour or so, even if it exceeds slightly more, then I can pick up some questions along the way. I'm very happy that, thank you so much, Eddie, for always hosting. and always leading in the speaker with a lot of color and as well as a huge amount of excitement and anticipation for people to come in here. I'm quite sure that what I'm going to share may not be very new, but today specifically, I think I've not shared this, at least 50% of this before. And in most of my presentation, I always like to have a little bit of a thought-provoking. What's my objective today? Simple. Though I say 3 things you need to know to navigate an uncertain property market, it may be not applicable to each and every one of you based on your current needs. But however, this information, if you keep it in an open mind, there will be implications, because in Singapore, probably, and in fact, it is confirmed, the highest percentage of population owning properties. And then I'm going to cover a little bit of public housing, not hugely. This is not a private property segment. I think there are other speakers who are covering, because if you look at the food chain, at the right bottom is 1 million public housing. The effects of the public housing have got impact in the outlying area. Similarly, it has also got an impact in the rest of the cost central regions. The ability for people to upgrade, the demand, the supply, and all other things. So that's why what I'm going to do here is this. I'm just going to focus some of the very salient point. Stay with me, and I'm really, really happy to see now almost 1,500 of you have already logged in. Okay, fine. I think this disclaimer is something that is what I've been trying to stress upon, that whatever we say, I will quote the sources, and we are also very mindful that at the speed that we communicate, and sometimes even I as a speaker not being able to see the response of the speakers, whether you are guessing, whether you're agreeing, whether you, at least if I'm speak to you directly, maybe I can get some responses. So all said and done, I'm trying to say here is this: please speak to one of the PropNex salespeople. All our PropNex salespeople have gone through huge amount of training, and I'm talking about training of asset progressions, decoupling, how people can own 2 properties if you qualify without having to pay a stamp duty for the second property. That is provided you qualify. That's why whatever I share and whatever you may speak to our sales consultants may not be applicable to everyone, but for some of you, it may be best suited. Okay, so this is something that you need to understand. For those of you who were there with me for the last seminar, we started with guess the price, and I intend to do this the same this time around, but maybe not too far away, and so that I can engage some of you to start thinking, is it real, is it true? And let's start, maybe I'll just do today maybe only 1 guessing. No doubt the last sessions I had about 3 properties from a lender to a private and a HDB. Let's look at the first slide. Wow, let's see. Yes, this is a bungalow at the east, and actually, if you drive there, probably you can't see this property at this now, because this photo was taken about, I guess, about 15 years ago. The land size is approximately 6,000 square foot. The building of the landed property, 2 stories, about 3,500 square foot. Tenure is freehold. So you have a glimpse of it. 6,000 square foot, squarish land, eastern part of Singapore. And what am I asking here is, guess the price of the property in the early 1950s. Why am I going back to early 1950s? Because that was the time that plot was crafted and was registered with the government. Okay, so it was beginning 1951, 52, 53, and somebody owned that about close to 70 years ago. What would have been your guess? The price of a 6,000 square foot landed property. Let's see. The price was below $50,000. Obviously, we all know the dollar of those days, $50,000 was huge. But having said that, how do we wish our grandparents have bought this property? You see, for some of you who know me and who know my family and so on, my dad is still healthy and kicking alive by the grace of the Almighty. He's slightly above 90, but he's mobile and he can travel. And therefore, when these properties were built, but he was young and he struggled, but he didn't have the means to buy. Imagine if some of our grandparents bought this property 70 years ago, and today you are either the son or you are the grandson, how you like it. So let's go on to the next slide and see this same property 50 years later. So I'm going back to 2005. That photo that I showed to you was taken in year 2005, 15 years ago. And guess what was the price? Because you see, no point for me to talk about history 70 years ago. Many of you will start me saying, Mr. Ismail, why are you talking about when policeman was wearing shorts? It is not something that will come back for any one of us having an opportunity. No point talking about our forefathers, grandfather's story. Therefore, fine, I decided to go to just 15 years ago, where some of us had the ability, but it still wasn't easy. So the same property that we are talking about, 6,000 square foot freehold, what would be the price? The person who bought that particular property. I suppose by now most of you would have already have a figure in your mind. Let me reveal that particular price, okay? Wow, sounds magical. $2.8 million was the exact price. I think this is caveated. In fact, if you go into the real lease or some of the reports, you will be able to see. But I didn't give you the exact address, but I told you it's at the eastern part where this house that I show you the photo was exactly transacted at 2005, slightly less than 15 years, at $2.8 million. Then the question here is, from 50,000 to 2.8 million is so many. I think a good 140 times it has gone up. Yeah, because 100,000 is 2 times. No, 1 million is 20 times, 40 times. No, it's only has gone up by about 56 times. From 50,000 to 2.8 million is about 56 times. If it is 60 times, it will be 3 million. Okay. So my question now here is this. The fact that this person who bought this property in 2005, 15 years ago, the next door plot, just now we saw the property, the next door, adjacent plot, yep, same size, almost similar condition, was sold last year. And can you guess the price? How much did the person pay for the neighboring plot? Now you know, 15 years ago it was 2.8 million. Yeah, I'm quite sure some of you may have some numbers in your head. This is something that you can't accept. Many of you will not be able to accept. Okay, so when you look at it, a freehold land, about 6,000 square foot, 9 million, don't seems to be hugely expensive, because when you divide the 9 million by 6,000 square foot, it only comes to $1,500 per square foot with a 2-story build up, and it is also renovated thereafter. Okay, so this is the price. So where am I leading these questions to? How come the property has moved up so many times? Let's see. Let's analyze this. So when we look at it, assuming, now I'm coming back to the owner who bought it at 2.8 million in 2005. 15 years later, assuming he decides to put up the property right now, okay, now maybe market sentiment, or for that matter due to COVID, but some of them just give me what I should say, a lame joke. Sorry, I qualified by lame joke. A friend of mine said, hey, boss, do you know landed property demand all has gone up? Suddenly, due to COVID, people realize those who are staying in a very small environment, they find it is really suffocating. They want to have a space to roam around, at least within the house. Okay, so maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But having said that, so we are talking about this particular property, and this is what I did in a very simple illustration for you to understand. Assuming he bought, not assuming, the fact is correct that he bought the property at 2.8 million. And I'm saying that property today, assuming he only sell at 8 million, even though the neighbor sold at 9 million last year, maybe we take into consideration of the current market situation and so on. And at 8 million is definitely a good buy, because the property will be then well below $1,400 per square foot. Yep. So initial outlay when he bought it at $2.8 million was 20%, 560,000. And assuming he sell at 8 million, he took a $2.24 million loan. And if he sell the property, I'm sure there is still some outstanding loan, assuming that owner took a 25-year loan and now it's only a 15 years and gone, and he still got a 10-year loan, and let's assume he still got 1 year outstanding loan. Therefore, when a person sells a property at 8 million, what happens? The bank will take back the outstanding loan of 1 million. But then he's going to get a check for $7 million, pure, whole, hard cash, on an assumption he never used CPF and all other things, because he came out with a 560,000. So what am I trying to say, and what are we trying to illustrate? A return of equity in this investment of $560,000 over 15 years had gone up to $7 million in terms of pure cash, and that equity had given him 1,250% or 12.5 times. Imagine if this person have bought this property at 2.8 million. I think for those of you who remember my earlier seminar 2 weeks ago, I said using time as an ally for rental yield. You see, at 2.8 million, a landed property in the East, you easily can rent at $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. If you had bought it 15 years ago at 2.8 million and you take a $2 million, your monthly installment will be less than $10,000. And assuming if you have been paying that through a rental over the $7,000, $8,000 throughout the last 15 years, even if you need to fork out a little bit more from your savings, and today if you can get $7 million, do you realize how much harder the property investment have worked as compared to we trying to save? What are the key things that we have learned from our earlier seminar? For those of you who missed, and now I'm coming back to this, is about leveraging, using the other people's money concept, taking the bank's loan, and as well as renting. But in this scenario, it may not have been rented out because the owner who buy a landed property, he may choose to stay. It doesn't matter. But is there a capital appreciation? That's the key message that I like to put across. Okay, let's move on. Let me go on to another example. Okay, I think today I got two because I wanted to talk about, because today I want to stress a little bit about the core central regions and so on, house. So I'm bringing it much nearer. So, okay, this, the sale at Marina Bay Residence was in 2004. For those of you who know where is the Marina Bay sales, you know it's a very beautiful development, not too far away, downtown in terms of the Marina Financial District area. And what's the price? Have you all got your price? I just want to know per square foot. When the developer launched about 15 years ago, you and me had an opportunity to enter the market. Average price was only $900 per square foot. Today our executive condominiums are well above $1,000. Imagine we owning a property at a sale at Marina at just about an average price of $900. Maybe some of the higher floor could be $950, but on average compared to lower and higher, it's about there. And we are just talking about not hugely far back, and we are talking about 15 years ago. Yeah. Well, let me go on to the next question. Fine. So what is the average price of the sale at Marina Residence last year, this year? Because I think this year I only got a very few period of caveat been launched. I just take it in the last 2 years. Now you can guess the price. Okay. The current average price is approximately $1,900 plus minus. That's why I put approx. And I also said because it's in a period of last year and this year. And that's the price. But Marina, the sale is already coming to 16 years. It is no more having a fresh 99-year lease. So it's already older. So you need to understand, later part I'm going to share some of the tips, what happens to resale property after some time. Is there a price stagnation? Okay, so this. And this is exactly what I meant by it. Look at this. If you look at it, let me see. Okay. So this is where I'm trying to highlight to you. You see, there were properties that were launched at that time. The per square foot was $800, $880, $804. But then there were also $1,000, 1036. That's average was 900. But then look at the prices that were sold. Even if you take it as some of the prices at, let's say, 2019, this is at 1,791 for the bigger one, and also for a smaller one in 2018 for some time back, 2,366. December 2019, not far away, which is only about we are talking 28th floor. about 4 months ago was transacted at $2,003. And this column basically show you the profit. If those people who bought it in 2004 or 5 at that time, and what price they purchased, and today these people have already sold. These are transacted real data, and the holding period ranges from, you can see, if you see like 5,000 days, means obviously it is coming from the day one they purchased. If you look at it at 3,960 days, it's about 12 years. It could have been flipped. Somebody who bought and then somebody else bought it, and yet these are the people who made a tidy profit of 916,000, 1.1 million, 1.8 million, depending on the size of the property. So what am I trying to say? Was it possible for some of us or any one of us to save money? That is, even you look at it, 1,800,000, 1.2 million, just by from our income. So what have these people have done? They have purchased the property over a period of time because of capital appreciation, using the concept of the other people's money, the other people's money being the bank's money, taking a loan, and as well as the tenant. And the locations at the sale or the marina financial center is easily, or to an extent, has got a hinterland that supports tenancy because of the work environment. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to very briefly, I know I shared this, I'm not going to take too much time, but I'm just, for those of you who are coming in for the first time to come and listen now, I've got almost 2,000 of you listening to this particular session. I just want to say, the example of the landed property, or for that matter, even the example of the sale, own it with the little that you have, the OPM is the other people's money. And what does it say basically? Okay, so I've given you an example. Assuming it's someone today who wants to go and buy in a 2-bedroom, depending on the location, this example is something that you're buying at an affordable, because I decided not to give an example of a cost central region, because the cost central region, later I'll give you the price point, will be much higher. But if someone who buy under this concept, because I'm trying to give an example that every one of you will have an opportunity to understand this. Okay, and then if somebody come out with a 25%, 200,000, and took a loan of 75% at $600,000, if based on current interest rate of 1.5%, if someone qualify and if they're younger, they take a 30-year loan, the monthly installment is only 2,070, and if someone only takes for 25 years, then the monthly installment is 2,005. It's either one of it, depending on you stretch your loan and based on your age and so on. But on the understanding, assuming we rent the property at 2,005, okay, and it will cover your monthly installment. I've gone up to, even if your interest goes up, because now a very unusual time, low interest rate, even if the interest goes up in the next couple of months or quarters or whatever it is. But in Singapore, we have an unusually low interest for a long period of time, almost the last 10 years. It did not hit the 3%, but I'm just factoring. Again, you just want to be prudent. Even if it goes up to $3,000, the installment is 2,005. Okay? This is what exactly I'm trying to say. Same examples at the sale. Remember the sale example that we said, or even for that matter, the eastern part of the thing, landed property, people who make how many 1,250% or multiple things. And I just want to take a very conservative approach. And I'm saying that if we buy a property now, the earlier example, and assuming on average, because some years it may not go up by 3% when the market is not so good, some years it goes up higher than that, and you average it on a compound at 3% increase over 25 years, the property that was purchased at 800 will be 1.9 million. And the initial outlay was $200,000, which was 25%, and the capital gain is 1.7 million over the 200, and that's how the return on the equity of the earlier investment is 850% or 8.5 times. So this is the beauty of real estate investment, and this is something why more people are trying to buy and invest in property, because this become definitely a retirement fund. Because saving a little bit and to make the money grow, there are other risks. But this one, leveraging using the bank's loan and the rental and the capital appreciation, that's why the money works so much harder. Okay, so this is just some of the examples that I've illustrated earlier. I'm just trying to put at ease. Okay, this is very briefly, I've also mentioned, this is basically, I'm just trying to say, 2019, last year, less than a year ago, a letter was sent to me and my wife from DBS Bank. Congratulations on the full repayment of the housing loan. What am I trying to say is we bought a very small property on the eastern part of Singapore, and we just took about a 20-year loan, a 21-year loan, and we fully paid the loan by last year, and we only bought the property at 700,000, and today it is almost 1.45 or 1.5 million. And same thing, I came out 20%, and whatever I say, it gives me 1,000%. So whatever I'm sharing here is this are the examples, real life, either a person who bought the landed property 15 years ago, or somebody who bought a condominium myself about 21 years ago, and in truly using the concept of rented out. And for this property, out of the 21 years, I only stayed there for one singular year, the first year. And thereafter, all the way the property was rented out, and it is still currently rented out. This is something that you need to just understand, that the concept of OPM is real. Okay, so today we are going to touch on some of the concepts and so on. So is your property an asset or liability? This is a very important question, because some of the easiest thing that we could do here is this: don't do anything. Because we said, after all, entering a property is taken a huge amount of planning, effort, commitment. Even it could end up as a liability if you don't plan it right. And therefore, some of us taken a very simple approach: I better don't do anything, hoping that over time, by capital appreciation, inflation, I will still make a pot of gold. But I'm just trying to say that here, and I want to share this to every singular listener. Let us adopt an active approach to real estate investment. When I say active approach, I'm not saying that you must every time sell and buy, no, but pause every couple of years and take a health check and understand what is the status of your property. Has it attained its maturity? Is there still a good capital appreciation, or is your property working less harder for you as you desire it to be? Okay, these are some of the things I'm going to share in a couple of the slides down. Okay, good. What am I going to ask this question here is, does your property stagnate after some time? And if it does, why? You say that, hey, Mr. Ismail, you're saying so much of these things, but I own this particular property and I've been there for the 10 years already, but it don't seems to be moving. Why is the property not moving? Okay, we will try to address that. Next question. I did mention at the start of the consumer seminar, today I'm going to address a little bit about the public housing. Why public housing? As I told you, a million owners do. And even for some of you who have got no interest, or you don't even qualify because of your income and all other things, put it this way: either your parents or your loved ones, your siblings, or your someone, your working colleague who owns a property, at least you got some good information if you want to have them, guide them, advise them. Okay, that's the main reason. Look at the HDB resale price index. What does it mean, price index? Okay, I just gave you an example of a price index. Okay, this is what it means. Okay, fine. Let me see. I go to the pointer. Okay, so you look at it. When I say in year 1994, where my pointer is showing the red dot, the price index was 50 points. Okay, which means in 1994, if you bought this particular property at $100,000, assuming it's a 3-bedroom, or if you bought in 1994, a property was $300,000 because it was a bigger 5-bedroom or in a good location. When the price index go 100, when you can see it is 100 in, let's say, year 2009, technically the property have gone double. Okay, this is what it meant. The index of the price measures a basket of average of all public housing. Then when you look at what happens, the it was at 1.4. Those who bought it at 148. In other words, if somebody bought it in 2009 at 300,000, the property would have gone in 2001 within 4 years, because there was a sharp continuous increase. The property 300 would have come to close to 400 or 1,000, because another 48% of the price increase. But then what happened to the rest of the year? It seems to have had a very muted growth and it has stagnated. Why was it so? Okay, you also need to understand that if you realize in 2013 something happened. Okay, the government decided to ramp up more BTO flats. I think the government came out with every singular year, 13, 14, 15, 16, 20,000, 25,000, 22,000, 25,000 new built to order flats. Okay, then we know when there is more supply and the demand in the resale market drop, and coupled with other cooling measures being introduced, and then you saw the plight of the public housing in the last 7 years. From 2013, we have not seen much of an increment in the price. But I will also highlight to you how this in a greater, let me see, okay, move on to the next slide. Okay, this is what I'm trying to illustrate. You see, for those of you who are owning a HDB, and for those of you who are even owning a HDB and owning a private property, you know, we always have this opinion and the view to say that, hey, public housing is an entitlement. I'm holding on to the public housing at no cost. I will sell it. But sometimes you must understand, owning a public housing, even though fully paid up and you are renting it out and you are getting a good rental yield, but because you're owning one, does that disqualify you from getting, when you buy a second property, that you have to pay additional stamp duty? Okay, never mind. Let me come back. When you look at it, when I look at it in 2006, the price increase was 1.9%. Then you look at it 17.5, 14.5, 8, because this was the Lehman crisis period. It dropped. Then immediately after that, it rebounded 14%, 10%. You see, when 2012 all the way negative was the time when the government deliberately decided to increase the BTO flats because they wanted to make sure public housing remain affordable for generations. Because if it going in a double digit, it wasn't so healthy because the next generation was not able to afford. Therefore, when I look at the public housing in 14, 15, 13 to even at the end of last year, what was the overall 2019? The growth was a mere 0.1%. Then the first quarter was just announced this week, zero. That means literally the property prices did not move in any direction. Okay, let's look at it. These are all the public housing. I mean, some of the old areas, but 1990 means we are talking about 30-year-old property. It has appreciated from the beginning 46,000. You see the multiple fold. It has increased 168, almost double. 168 times 2 will be 334, almost double. And that has happened to almost every property from 1919. 10 years at a huge increase because it was all moving upward. Our economy was doing well. Public housing was seen by many people as an asset, and it moved. Okay, so now what's my message? There's this $1 million question a lot of you are asking. What will happen to my property because public housing is a 99-year leasehold? Yeah, and then you look at this. Why am I quite certain in my personal opinion? You remember I showed you some of the earlier slide, this slide, when you see the public housing going up by 17%, 14%, 14%, 10%. I honestly think the double-digit growth of public housing is no more realistic expectation. It doesn't make sense. Because why does it make sense? This is what I'm trying to highlight. Okay, imagine those days were 17%, 14%. I'm just giving an example. Assuming a public housing 2 years ago was 500,000, and you compound it, let's say a 10% growth. Yep, in a year, because those days it was able to go even more than 10%. Then the property would attain 550, and then another 10%. Compounded 605. Therefore, in just 5 years, from 2018 to 2023, the property price have gone up to 805,000. And then with this theory, assumption, then it stretch it for another 5 years. From 805, and you compound it by 10%, the public housing that someone bought it 10 years ago in 2018. By 2028, it comes to 1.3 million on the assumption of a 10% growth. Does that make sense? I think it makes insane. It's not realistic. Why? That's why the government have decided to come out with greater supply, because 10 years down the road, we will have more younger generations who will be getting married. Their income don't increase as much as before in the next 10 years to be able to afford. If a public housing can go up to 1.3 million, then what will happen to all the private property? So what am I trying to say here is this. Therefore, public housing will keep pace with inflation, but we can't expect a huge increase like what our parents had the opportunity those days. Okay, good. Then, The question that I'm asked earlier was, what happens to our HDB with dropping leases? And upon expiry of the 99 years lease, what will happen? Yep. And I'm quite certain when the lease drops, there will be some options as far as the government may consider, but I do not want to speculate any of these things. I think there has been a huge amount of a debate. The government have an option to tear down and give you a replacement home, a selective unblock sales, which they call it. But on the other hand, is it applicable for every singular house? Is the government legally entitled to do that, or should they do that? We do not know. So, but this is something that I've noticed. You see, I'm just giving an example of a 3-bedroom at Mountbatten Road. Okay, and this property in 1969 was sold by the HDB at $6,200, and at the peak, the property went up to $350,000. But today, some of the transactions, the same property at the same estate, at the similar flat, are transacting at 250, 255. Why? Then we were saying what? Property over the long term should always appreciate. Then I'm bringing back to the key point. Is your property an asset or liability over time? Therefore, price drop has got many, and one of the reason is the lease balance of only 47 years. Okay, for this particular property, I show you. So this is something that we extracted it. Okay, and then these are successful transactions. You can check from the HDB and so on. And this record was found on 14th April, which is this month. And you can see Talang Wampo is an estate where itself is Jalan Batu, which is Mountbatten area, a 3-bedroom. And look at the transaction prices, $250,000. Okay, March 20. That means registration was just this year. Last year, November, look at it. It was some was going at 300, 299. This year, 2 transactions, 255, 250,000. And look at the remaining lease, 47 years. Yep. Okay, well, it's about the same period of time. Then the next question, be it the lower floor or the higher floor, really don't make a difference, whether the 10 to 12 floor or is it in the 1 to 3 floor. The price is because the lease, whoever who buy this, imagine this person stay there for another 20 years and the balance lease is only going to be 28 years. Hopefully the government does a selective en bloc, and if it is not, how much whoever the next person buy, how long can he use? Because at the end of 99-year lease, in other words, after the 47 years old, this property value comes to 0. The owner, whoever who owns to this property for the next 47 years, he will have to vacate the premises and hand over the property to the authorities to be demolished because it is have lost all his remaining lease. Okay, that is the clarity that you need to understand. Okay, so I've got all about public housing. Let me now go to fine. What about private properties? Then you said, Mr. Ismail, you talked about public housing earlier. You give a little bit of a glimpse. I'm not saying anything negative or what. I think it's perfectly okay to stay. I think a lot of my friends, a lot of my relatives, even some of my siblings are staying in private properties, and I'm happy with that. Okay, but I'm just trying to making you, as I say, keep an open mind to understand from a macro perspective. What about private properties? Do you want to know the benefits of an HUDC or a private property, even though they are 99-year lease? What is the advantage a private property comes with? One of the key things here is this. There's an en-bloc potential when the market is right. And if you ask me right now, the market is not right for en-bloc. But the market was hugely positive. You talk about 2017, 2018. I think we had 10 billion and 8 billion and 9, huge amount of properties went en bloc. Why? There was a strong demand. And that is one of the greatest advantage of a private property. I give you an example. I think this have yet to be launched. Normanton Park was sold en bloc in 2017 for $830 million. And what is thing? And you see, it was a 19-year tenure. En bloc was, and the balance lease was 59 years. So even though they had less than 60 years, each owner got close to $1.8 million. There were some bigger units that got about $2.2 million. I'm talking about the point block owners generally got it about 1.7 something to 1.8 million kind of thing, the range. Okay, so, and you know how much they bought it? I'm talking about if somebody who bought it at the beginning, it was less than $3,000. For that matter, in the early 1986, okay, but 10 years thereafter, it was less than $100,000. And people who stayed there or who rented out, and they would have all got a 1.8 million. So the opportunity of a private property to go on block when the market is right is huge as compared to just now we talk about public housing. Let's look at it. There's another of these HDBC, Shunfu. Shunfu again was completed in 1986. The tenure was 99, but this went on block 2016. Okay, and in fact, now for those of you who are looking at this development, it's a huge, beautiful development. I must say, it's known as Jadescape. Right now, it is going on the market. It's a superb location, a really superb location, District 20. The developer bought it at 630 million, and each owner pocketed 1.78 million, close to 1.8 million. And how much would they have bought? Less than $100,000 or above $100,000 to $200,000, depending on the size of unit, whatever it is. And we are talking about what? 30 years ago. And today, balance 69 years. Let's look at another example. Florence Regency. Yep. Florence Regency in Hougang was sold en bloc for $629 million. Again, the balance lease is still 70 years. So, and this was successfully transacted after 29 years, people who stayed there. So one of the advantage of a private property, if you're owning, and especially it's a resale flat, and even if it is an older, but it will not mean every private property will qualify for en bloc, because the en bloc got a huge number of consideration, the plot ratios, the transformation of the area, and the market conditions, and all other things put together. A developer who wants to buy him must see some form of an upside, even paying someone 1.8 million or 600 million or 800 million for the entire project. That developer is able to redevelop and make a simple or small profit. If not, a developer will not buy. That's why I said the en bloc market is no more now. Probably next 3 to 5 years in the next upcycle, there are opportunities. Okay, so this is something that we talked about as far as the private property is concerned. Now, what am I trying to highlight here is this. Let's look at price movement and stagnations. Remember, I said that I want to give about an overview understanding of the 3 key pointers. We have stressed a fair amount of the time as far as the public housing is concerned, and we also talk about the private property in terms of en bloc. Now, I'm just going to focus on 2 particular segments, which is new launches and resale properties. Because time and again, we always ask this question, Mr. Ismail, why are you suggesting, or even some of the people are prepared to pay a higher per square foot at the entry level for a new property when the resale properties are so much cheaper? And some of you have even spoken to me on a privately when I had my other consumer seminar face-to-face. You said that it really doesn't make sense for me to pay a higher entry price when the resale properties are so much lower. Fine, I think I respect your decision. Then you must know, what is your game plan? Are you going to enter the market and hold on for the next en bloc cycle, which you're not in control because there are many upsides cycles that you need to wait and you must be certain about it? Or you're going to go there as an investment and you want to just make that appreciation and exit plan? Do you have an exit plan? Okay, so this is what I'm going to share in the next couple of slides: price movement and stagnation. Why resale properties versus new launches? There are different ways that you want to look at it. Okay, look at this. The short residences. What you look at here is this: the development was launched somewhere in year 2009, and the per square foot rent was about $1,100. People who had the launch went up there, buy, and immediately that. And then you can see, within a short period, the development sometimes don't even COP, 2 years or sometimes 2.5 years, depending on how fast the developer complete. But then you can see just keep moving up. Why does the price within a short period of 1 year can go up when the construction is more than one year? This is something we will talk about it later. Who is controlling the price that the price can go up? And then you see, when you look at 2014, it's almost in a good 5 years. The property, someone who bought it at the entry level at 1,001, and if they choose to exit at 1,650 during the 2013 period, and the price difference of the exit and the entry, they make easily assumption of 1,000 square foot, $500,000. Is that a good, decent money as a saving plan, or as an investment plan, or a retirement plan? Yes. But I'm not asking all those listeners to say, let's be speculative, go into the market and quickly go and make sure, come on, because nobody can guarantee you the 5 years if, for example, a pandemic that exists or what. Do you have the holding power? That's important. But the point that I'm trying to illustrate here is this, and I think this is equally definitely important that I'm trying to highlight here is, let me just, okay. You see, why this period? Why? What has happened? This is where we call it as a stagnant period. Why? Yeah, because if you understand who's controlling the price, many of the owners who have bought it here, nobody can control the price. Okay, and anyone who bought it at 1,001 prepared to sell at 1,500 because they may have an dire needs, and or maybe the child is going to go for an overseas education, or somebody wants to sell and upgrade to another landed property. And as long as there's a supply in the market that people are prepared to sell, nobody is holding the price, and that's why the property prices go into a stagnation. Okay, so this is something that you need to understand how these things work. Okay, let me see. Oops, sorry. Okay, so let me see. Let me sort of okay, point option. Okay, so I'm going on to the next slide. And this is again another example that I'm talking about is Queens. And look at Queens. Even when it was launched at the earlier part of 2000, before the 210, the starting price was $700 and then quickly ran up to $900, less than $1,000 per square foot. And there were some crises. That's why I say you still need to have the holding power. Okay, and then even it was the Lehman crisis. You remember 2008-09. Immediately after that, that's why you still need to have a holding power. If you're forced to sell, you would have lost money. Those of them who bought it, they would have lost money. But eventually after that, the market started to move. And when you look at it, again, it's an example of 1,000 square foot. People who bought it at the earliest stages, and subsequently they sell it at its peak. And what are they trying to able to make money out of it? It's more than $500,000. And then we talk about double bay residents. I think it's another similar examples that I'm talking about in the last 10 years. And if you look at it from 2019 to 2009 to 2019 at the entry level of price, what it went here is this so about 600, less than $700 per square foot, and at its peak was about 1,200, and right now it is going at below $1,000. Okay, or slightly above 1,058. So again, it is in a stagnation. So my key message I'm talking about here is this: it's okay to buy a resale property if you're going to keep on a very long-term view, and you're going to stay as an owner occupied, and if you think there's some upside of a potential as the lease drop, there's an en bloc cycle. But the disadvantage of an en bloc cycle is you can't dictate when you want to exit. If the market is not good, and if that development plot ratio and all other things not in the favor, then you may not be able to have an en bloc at all. Okay, this is the disadvantage. Okay, now let's look at the new launch market movement. As much as we talk about it for the resale, let's look at the new launch. And when we look at the new launch, what happened here is this. This is another good example. Look at this example. This is actually Kingsford Water Bay. I think it's those of you know, not too far away from Hong Kong. Yeah, and this particular property, I'm talking about a development that was transacted in May 2017, and this is October 2017. In fact, October, the property that is lower floor, third floor. May was a higher floor. And look at the price. How much did the developer sold? I mean, these are real ticket that we are showing in 2017, new sale. Size is the same, 103 square foot, and the same in the same stack. And this is basically on a 0.0315, and this 0.815. That means it's the same facing, same stack. People ended up being a lower floor house at a higher price of more than $200 per square foot. Okay, $200 per square foot. That means what? This development have yet to be completed. Then the person who come at the later stage were able to make, based on the market movement and as well as the momentum the developer built on as he increased the prices. Okay, this is what we call it as a first mover advantage, which I will stress upon little bit more in the subsequent slides. And then this is another example, seaside residence. Okay, Seaside Residence, yep, is only coming to TOP, still in the progress of the final stages and so on. Developer launch it 17th floor, 17. Okay, we're talking showing another similar spec. Okay, 20th floor, 17. And in 2017, less than 2 years thereafter, these people who bought it at $1,679 per square foot, and subsequently is the same block because you can say the address is number 16. Okay, it's only the difference between the higher floor and the lower floor. And this person 6 floor higher entered and paid $2,114 per square foot. And if you look at the price, somebody paid to the developer 2.8 billion, while someone else paid $3.5 million. And that's hugely $700,000 more at the entry level. Then my question here is, when this development, after some time, let's say the 5 years or the 6 years thereafter the TOP, do you think this guy will be very happy to sell the property at even 2003, 2004, because he would have made a huge profit? This guy who bought it in 2001, even sometimes he want to exceed, he may barely be breaking even, because other people at the first move advantage have bought it at an earlier, and therefore he's not able to control the price. So this is one example of what I'm trying to say here is this. At new launches, there are advantages from the price, and the price tend to move up for a certain period of time before it starts to stagnate. Okay, this is exactly the example. If you say, when we talk about it, these are all new launches, it's to move up. After some time it stagnates, simply because during these earlier stages, the developers are able to stage the price. That is the example I showed to you. As the demand, as the percentage sold and the market demand go up, he keep increasing the price. And every time when he increases the price, there's no one else selling. The banker is prepared to value, and there is a demand, and that's why the property goes up. But thereafter, this is exactly the issues where some of them who bought it at lower price are prepared to sell and exit. Nobody can hold the price, and that's why it's going into stagnation. Okay, so we shared about this, we shared about, yes, let's move on. So what is the advantage of a new launch? Okay, this is the thing that I exactly mentioned. Developers stage up the price, mainly because, in fact, especially during now, the market sentiment since last year when the government introduced the cooling measures, developers at the launch barely make double-digit profit. Some of them just make a small margin of profit to get the momentum. But once they attain the momentum, what they do here is this: they bring up the price so that the dollar averaging, so that they get a decent profit. Okay, so the first mover advantage is what that we have talked about a fair amount. And I'm just going to give you this simple example just to nail the point that I'm trying to say. Okay, this is a development known as Twin View. This is Resale brand. They are just on the same one service road with the dead end. You can probably throw a javelin across each other development. Okay, and what am I trying to say? You see Twin View, the price was 500. The land purchase was this much, and this was land purchase. Both are government lands here. The developer at launch sold it at 1,400 because he launched it before the cooling measures. The launch date, May. The cooling measures was 5th July, 2 months before. While Resale grant was launched 4 months after cooling measures. So the developers were forced to sell at a lower price. Imagine, even though he bought it at a higher land cost, he sold it at a relatively lower price. This is what I meant by first mover advantage. And this is exactly the scenario that I'm explaining. Look at it. When he launched, for the first 30%, he sold at $1,325, $27. The minute he crossed the 30% mark, what he did, he increased the price to 370 or 360, around there. The minute he reached the 50% mark, and we still have not TOP'd, the developer increased the price to 1,400. The minute they increase, they have sold 60%, now selling at $1,450 on average median price. Look at it. From the start until now, the developers increased the price, and this is what we meant by stage up the price, because at the entry level, those people who entered earlier, the developer make very little profit because he needs the momentum, he has got obligations, and I do not want to go into the whole details because I've shared a fair bit in the earlier seminar. Okay, so how to determine the right price asset? Okay, so let me just speed up. I think it has come to almost about 50 minutes I'm talking about it, and it is important to determine the right. And one of the 5 important investment rules, very briefly, if I just highlight here, is this. in any investment that you buy, you may want to look at it. Is there a transformation that under the master plan taking place? Because that becomes a huge plus point. Beyond what you bought it, whatever you purchase it for, it is capital appreciation. The transformations of the surrounding area give a push because the hinterland become with a greater amount of workforce and the lifestyle people prefer. And that's how the transformation makes. And then you must also see, what is the potential upside at this? At the entry, are you hugely paying a high price, or is it at a safe entry? And are you hugely taking a risk by paying a top dollar? Okay, this is something that you also need to understand. And when you enter, are you buying at the old price tag, new price tag? And what do I mean by that is old and new? You need to understand the current market. And if you are paying, because of the developers are sensitive, the pricing, and he's giving you on the last year's price, because of the sentiment favors the buyers. Therefore, you have an advantage even though you're investing later, and then you're buying it at a good price. Supply and demand is important because all property prices based on supply, demand, and finally rental yield. For my other people's money concept to work, the property must have rental tenancy. And how do you want to have rental and the yield? Simply because you are looking at an investment where there's a transformation and there is an upside in terms of the workflows. Okay, today I want to touch on very briefly, and I'm also going to talk about some other properties, but I just give this as an example of Marina One Residences. You know, this is a very unique development, and if you look at it, some of the bigger units are still available starting from less than $2,200, but average, even you take a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, you are able to get it at 2,002 plus and 2,003, some are even lesser depending on the floor and facing and things like that and so on. And the good news here is they still got some very decent development. Why did I touch on this particular development just for today as a point of a discussion for those of you who want to look at this development? Is again, we talk about all the first mover advantage. And what is the advantage of as far as this area is concerned is the Greater Southern Waterfront. And this Greater Southern Waterfront was just announced by our Prime Minister in the last year's National Day rally. This is the Marina South. These are all the financial centers and so on, whatever is existing here. Yeah, we can see MBS and all other things. And this is the downtown core. You see the extension of the transformation of the Greater Southern Waterfront over the next couple of years, down 10 years, 15 years. It is going to be a huge, big build-up of in terms of a workforce, and on to a place where the core become really extended. And this is what, as we said, even the National Day rally, even some public housing will be have, and these are going to be really some of the premium product. And the size is 6 times the size of Marina Bay, and we are talking about a hinterland that is equally strong. Okay, therefore, again, what are we talking about? And we just see, let's just look at some of the other price appreciations in the past because of transformation. This is something that the Jurong massive makeover, it took place some time ago when there was a huge transformation announced by the government. And then you look at it, this is Marina Bay before the transformation, and this is after the transformation. So now you realize, right, in 2004, those people who bought the Marina sale at $800 per square foot. Why? They entered the market because it wasn't transformed. It was cheap. But even those days, that standard people felt was too high. But the transformation brought them to an appreciation in certain of the properties in District 1, District 2. Prices after transformation in 2004 to 2019 has appreciated threefold. Okay, and this is what a push from the transformation. And this is the complete, now we are talking about the Jurong makeover, when the government announced the Jurong Gateway, okay, the CBD of the West, when many of the MNCs were located there. And it started to become a hinterland where it has its ability to even find tenants and so on. What happened? From 2006 in the last 10 years, from average prices from 500 in some of the places went up 1,600 is almost close to 200%. So transformation do have. Yeah. So in a nutshell, we say transformation is a good push. And just now when we talk about the Marina One residents, are development surrounding those areas. There are a few other developments that I can talk about, or you can always talk to any of our salespeople to understand how this can also further help you. Okay. Now let's talk about the potential upside and the risk. Okay, so when we talk about the potential upside and the risk, one will have to really look at the entry prices. When you enter the price, what are you paying? Is this the right price to enter for Marina One residents? Okay, then you compare for some other people. They are not apple to apple comparison, but I'm just saying if you look at Bolek or you look at South Beach, they are slightly different location. Beach Road and so on, but the prices are well above $3,000. Or you talk about One Pearl Bank or Sky Everton, it's near the Everton area, Chinatown, it's all about 2,600 to 7,000 per square foot. Even One Mayor Amber is about 2,000. And if MOR, if somebody enter at 2001, 2002, or 2250 to less than 2003, then is the price right? Are you already at the entry level? Playing it safe, that it cannot go so much lower. How much lower? Can it go to 1,005 when the mass market product are already that price? This is where you're looking at the right price entry. Okay, so let's talk about demand and supply. Okay, whatever we talk about transformation, we talk about the entry price, we talk about demand and supply. Then you look at the number of land sales, and then you look at District 1. All of 2018 there was 0, and 2019 was only 1 and 20. So those areas, because they are already a financial center, it is fairly developed, and there aren't many supply. So if whoever who invest there, you also take a look at it from this perspective, that it is relatively safe because there isn't a glut in terms of supply competing. Okay. Let me very briefly go on and very fast. Resiliency of Singapore residential market has been definitely strong. Residential market resilient due to strong foundation, and Singapore tops region for property investment prospect. This is what I'm trying to say. If you look at historical investment in the last 3 years, I know this was in fact in November last year, but this is by Urban Land Institute and PwC. Before in 151617, there was an interest globally. And you need to understand, Singapore as a city is also there's a global interest. Because investors do compare Singapore, especially by in cost central region, Singapore in comparison to London, Sydney, Auckland, and all other, even Hong Kong, the prices in terms of the median home price to income ratio has come down because of cooling measures, price correction, while some of the other cities have gone up hugely high. So this is something from an investment perspective. You enter the market, do you think there's still an upside? Are you entering it relatively safe? So this is another way that you look at it. And this is basically when we say cost central region, for those who are pink, the District 2, District 1, which is all the downtown core, then you have the District 9, 10, the blues are the rest of cost central region, and the rest are outside cost central region, just to give you a glimpse of it. So these are some of the notable projects in first quarter. Yeah, you can see it. M was just launched in February. It has a huge take-up, really huge take-up. Within the 1 weekend, well above 300 units or so. And look at the median price. It 2.4. In some of the units went up to 2.5 to 6 on the higher floors and so on. And then these are all the price that command. If it's a freehold, if it is a vineyard, $3,000 or $2,800, or when Holland is almost 2,990. These are the cost central region prices. And then you look at the RCR price. Okay, 1,007 or 1,006 depending on location. Avenue South is 1,009 and so on. And then eventually the outlying areas, you can have one of the best-selling project was Treasure at 1,003. Canberra and Ola executive condominiums already well above 1,001. So that's why when you enter, you compare with the other areas, people are already paying these kind of prices at 1,009, 1,007, 1,991. How much lower will that happen when you enter CCR at 2,12223? And that's why people went into the and confidently, despite some global concerns of the trade, and this year in 2020. And this is something that I'm trying to highlight. This is where we also say, are you buying at current price or old price? Look at it. This is just to give you an example. Public house, you see ECs. ECs are all already at 1,000, 1,150. It's not possible for the ECs to go much lower, okay, because the land costs are already inbuilt. Mass market condo already 1,400, 1,516. RCR is 1,009. Some are even on the higher side if it is freehold. and the more central regions are going at 2008 and for up to 4005, the premium product. And this is exactly what I meant. You see 2004, 2007, 2002, 2008, almost $3,000. Okay, so that being the case, if you are able to enter the market at less than 2005 at the core central region, in fact, you're buying at the old price tag on some of the development. So anyway, you have to do your sum, speak to our consultants, understand better. I just want you to take a very prudent approach, but just to give a glimpse of overall where does the price chart stand. Okay, the next question, $1,000,000 questions again here is this. Mr. Ismail, what about the populations? Is there a demand? We are saying about buying properties, and look at Singapore population in the last 9 years. From 5.08 has gone to 5.7, a 620,000 population have increased. Look at rental volume. Again, in the last 6 years, from 56,000 to 93,000. These are from list URA. These are reported. There has been a demand. People are coming in. People are trying to invest in properties. People are also renting properties in Singapore, and this is where the demand comes from. Next question here will be, what about the land prices? Generally, the land prices for those doing the en bloc and the government land sales from 1 year 2017 to 18 generally has gone up to 14 to 20%. So the developers have already committed a land cost at a higher price, and therefore, why am I trying to highlight? Do you expect the property price to hugely drop? Some correction is not likely to have a huge drop. Okay, so again, looking at the private home sales, and then you look at it, you see, when the yes, 2010, 16,000, 15,000, 22,000. What happened is after the cooling measures were announced, the volume went down to 777. The market started to move to 10,000, 8,000. Last year was almost $10,000, but this year because of COVID, so flats are closed. Therefore, again, the question is it a good time to go? Is this a buyer's market? How do we wish that you would have gone and bought it at 2004 when the volume was so low? Can you imagine? 2002 was so good during the SARS period. This was exactly the 2002 or the SARS period. And that's why people bought the sale, and all was because the volume wasn't there. And this year we are expecting volume to be maybe 6,000-7,000. And then why did the volume drop in 2008? Because it's a layman crisis. Every crisis, volume drop, demand is lesser, become buyer's market, and then it moves with vengeance, and people come into units. And then why did it stagnate here for a period? Because the government introduced TDSR, PTSD, and huge amount of cooling measures. And then after some time, the market started to pick up. And again, it was a slowdown because the government announced in July another round of cooling measures. The market started to rebound, and now it's a COVID situation. So I just wanted to say sometimes it's important to time it, therefore, and then we look at the unsold units. The unsold units just over a period of 1 year, from 36,000 to now 29,000. More units have been taken up, and looking at the population and put the demand, I think this demand of 29,000 will be absorbed in 4 years. If you take a demand of even this year lesser and subsequent years 8,000-9,000, and if you take 4 years of 8,000, will be 32,000. Okay, so and now you know the en bloc sales are almost dead market. There isn't a huge number of en bloc coming to add on to the supply. Once in a while, a government land sales takes place. Okay, so this is something in terms of supply. So the three key points that I wanted to highlight as I'm coming to the end in the next 5 to 10 minutes before I take some questions, here is this. We talked about public housing, dropping leases, price consequences. Okay, so it's okay to stay in a public housing, but one will have to make an assessment. Is there a time that you are looking at it from a perspective of a liability on an asset? But it's again, I want to say it's all right for you to stay. As long as you're happy, you're living with your means, and you're comfortable with that, and you do not want any high commitment, we respect that. And that's perfectly okay. From an education point of view, you need to understand there are consequences. Private resale property, the price stagnations. Why to the early stages, the prices move relatively fast, and after that, it's going to a stagnation. Okay. Then we talk about the new launches. Why there's a first mover advantage? Because the developers stage up the price, and there's a demand, and because there is bank valuation that supports. Okay, these are some of the 3 key points that we talk about. And I'm just highlighting some of the best-selling projects for last year, because you can speak to any of our salespeople, because depending on your needs, not necessarily we need to talk about a cost central region. The Treasure companies did extremely well. They sold about almost 900 units at 1,003, and these are some of those developments. You want to take a screenshot, you want to talk to our people, it's perfectly okay. These are mostly OCR and RCR. Okay, so these are some of the things for first quarter this year. The M did exceptionally well, even though it's cost central, because the price was sweet for many people to consider. And this is easy. Your Treasure again did very well. Gscape did very well. Park Star, Park Clementes, and Florence Residence. Other than Piedmont is another easy. So again, if, depending on your budget, either through the OPM concept, where does it suit you? Let me talk about this. The fact that we talk so much about the Greater Southern Waterfront and the downtown, 5 on Shenton. 5 on Shenton has got some star by promotion. Talk to any of our salespeople. They are slightly bigger units, and they are all about 1,206 square foot. And there are something that is exciting at the prices that goes from last 13 units from 37 to 53 floor, because some are really breathtaking view. Okay, so this is something for you to just understand, and if you want to speak to and understand more about 5 on Shenton, the location is again super. Okay, you want to look at it, 5 Derbyshire. Okay, now this is the point. Because the market favors the buyer, developers tend to give discounts. And this is a freehold development, someone who we are really fixated with freehold, and a district 11, and the developers giving for the next 2 units or so, and 80,000. So why the developers are trying to build the momentum during this period? Okay, these are all some of the things that you know is doing very well. Cop was just launched and they did very well, and I'm very, very pleasantly surprised. Even during the circuit breaker, in the last 2 weeks have sold close to 10 units despite the circuit breaker. Okay, Martin Modern is doing well. Mid-on Bay, Leiden Green. Please talk to our salespeople, because we are not here specifically saying, but I want you to understand, as much as an education journey, if you understand the overall concept, when you look at it from an asset liability, there could be some action that is good too. Wow, who's this very handsome person? Yep. Yeah, because I'm wearing a beret, so therefore you can see that thinning hairs can't be seen. Okay, I've decided to do something. If those of you realize 2 weeks ago, I conducted a seminar with almost close to 3,000 of you came in and heard me from the timeless gate. It's a concept. And because a lot of people ask me, hey, Mr. Ismail, you have a military background, you are running a company, Singapore's largest real estate company with 8,500 people, and you have a lot of crises with COVID and expenditures. How do you manage this? What it takes from a leadership perspective? So I decided to do a 5-part series on leadership insights by me. Okay, so the next week, this coming Saturday at 3 p.m., I think it's all going to be very short. It's not going to be long as this. I'm only going to share for about 40 minutes because it's going to be 5 parts, and then I'm going to take a lot of Q&A. Great leaders in a crisis and leadership myth. Therefore, if you want to make an assessment, are you a leader? Can you be a leader? What are the myths? Let me just explain that, and then I will tell you what is the subsequent week's topic. So this is something I really want, not only you, please get all your friends, your loved ones, or whoever. Even if you have a boy or a girl who's about 13 years, 14 years, future leaders. By the time on the 4th and 5th, I will also let you know building a legacy plan. Okay, this is something that is really interesting for you. So are you ready to take the necessary action? Because some of you have attended multiple consumer seminars, but are you doing an assessment, whether it's your property? And I said, please speak to any of our salespeople and so on. I think that is hugely, they are very well trained and they can understand. You can always follow us in our Facebook, because most of the time we do update some of the latest trend and some of the new topics or some of the market analysis and so on. Yeah. So with that, I've come to an end, and exactly it's 1 hour and 15 minutes. Thank you so much. At one stage, there were people who were going to almost well above 1,800 people who were tuning in, or close to 2,000 people. Those of you are hearing me. Thank you so much, and I'm going to pass on to the host to take any questions.
Hi, sir. So I think really very concise session tonight. Not easy to summarize so many things, including macro view into details about stages of a progression in just less than 65 minutes. So there's some curiosity, is that they're asking, ABSD has been imposed so far. I mean, from most of the general reply in the chat group itself, they all feel that it's not going to go away. But how do they plan their property portfolio? Because they're thinking of upgrading and buying a bigger asset. But now they have to pay the ABSD. It might not seem so attractive. For people that's going to buy a property, can you give them some advice on how should they plan ahead structure? Should they buy a bigger one first or to buy a small one because of risk factor? Is there any insight on?
Okay, I think there's no one fit answer to every one of you, but I think from broadly, there are a couple of ways that you could do. But as I said, you have to speak to our sales consultants to understand your financial ability and obligations. There are people who are able to buy a second property without even having to pay an ABSD, and this is by reorganizing the property portfolio. This is one way that one could do it, buying a second property if you are interested to use the OPM concept so that you can rent that out. That is possible. People who are definitely cash rich are even able to buy it in trust. One of their child or children name, and by buying that, the only disadvantage is you may not be able to qualify for a loan, but if you have the money coming in over the next progressively, if you buy a new launch, you can also overcome without having to pay an ABSD. But the question that you ask here is, what about someone who wants to upgrade? A person who's owning on a public housing, wants to buy a private property, or for that matter, existing private property, you want to buy a bigger private property and so on. I think this is a very good timing. Why I say it's a good timing? Sometimes there's a risk and a danger. Here is when we plan to sell our property and then we decided to sell because you're so focused, fixated. I want to take a really very cautious approach to sell, and then you sell your property, let's say 1 million, and then you think you wanted to enter a bigger property after all the funds come in. Then unfortunately, suddenly when the market take a turn, the property that you are eyeing to buy at 1.5, because you said I will sell my property at 1 million and I want to buy 1.5 million and I can afford it, I want to make sure I sell this, I go through the process and all other things. By the time when the market turn, the 1.5 million become 1.9 million. And then you say, wow, it is no more affordable, but I've already got rid of my property, but I'm now nowhere, in no man's land. So there is a risk. But what am I trying to say? Currently, the market do allow a little bit of a stability because the market is not moving hugely. So you can plan. Can you buy a property first? Okay. Generally, the guideline here is this. You need not pay an ABSD as long as if you're upgrading a property and you can get rid of that existing property before you exercise the other property. Okay, so I don't want to go into that little minute. I think it would be very best discuss each individual understanding. My salespeople are so very well trained. They can take a clean sheet of piece of paper, or even they can go through Zoom and explain to you. So it's possible. I think this is a good time to seriously think about upgrading because prices are to your advantage. It's a buyer's sentiment. It's also a good time if you want to consider buying a second property.
Thank you, sir. So keyword about that is about tax planning. So there's a lot of ways whereby we can help you to maybe reduce your stamp duty from unnecessary paying stamp duty, or even planning the timeline out so that you may not even know that you are eligible for a remission. We had a case study whereby the client actually did not have to pay stamp duty, but because they did not know about the timeline, they missed it, which is why they did not get a remission. So I think it's very importantly, there was hundreds of thousands of dollars. So do speak to your PropNex consultant on that. And sir, so someone was asking, because they saw your statistic about the resale price index. So he was making a comment, is that Alvin was saying that the past couple of years, the resale price index was stagnant. Is there still any upside if they go into the private resale market today?
Okay, so yes, definitely. I'm not so sure. Is it comparing from HDB to private or private to private?
Only private to private.
Okay, fine. But I think definitely yes. Why the overall price index has been a little bit more stagnant here is because ever since the cooling measures were announced in 2013, and then thereafter, then it goes on to the last year's 2018 cooling measures. It all has got to do with demand and supply. Yeah, definitely yes. Over time, the landed property, even the private property, doesn't matter whether they are landed or even a private condominium, over time, it keeps pace with inflation. But unfortunately, unlike a new launch property, where the developers are able to stage, it tend to move so much higher. That's the greatest advantage you have it in the first few years. So the question that you ask here is this: will the resale property price index will go upward? Yes, it will. But how high will it go? It is likely to mirror the GDP growth, the economic outlook, and inflation. And if you look at the current pandemic, and if you think that the world economy is going to take another 1-2 years to reset, because it has been reset and moved, so it will be a slower growth, and subsequently you can see it growing, keeping pace with inflation.
Thank you. So the following question after this about resale price index is that, looking at the CCR, RCR, and OCR sectors now, which one do you find that there's an opportunity for people to buy in now as a first investment property?
I think this one, honestly, I will say it all depends on individual ability to enter the market. Okay, to me, you see, then I take a very holistic approach. I will give a 3 example. Assuming I'm staying in a public housing and I'm having a decent income, and I know my public housing, I've stayed there for more than 10, 15 years, and I know it has appreciated, and I know looking at the price movement of the public housing has been almost just meandering with not much growth, and I also think there aren't much upside in the near future. Assuming if it is that a situation, and based on my income, I will definitely think that would I be able to buy one of a property within my budget, and if my budget only allow me to go to buy an OCR, doesn't matter if it is Florence or doesn't matter if it is Treasure, Tampines, it really doesn't matter. Whichever part of Singapore is within my budget, that is the key. I will still make that move. Then the next question here is, if someone who's in the middle income are earning decent and have the ability, and I'm telling you, this may be the best opportunity for Singaporeans who have never thought about staying in Coast Central region, and it allows them to go simply because, Coast Central regions have always been thought about for the high net worth from overseas people. No, today the price point have come down reasonably enough. Someone who's staying in a little bit of the outlying area, even though a private property, you can switch over. And believe me, I give you an example. We know a client of ours who was staying in Tampines, executive maisonette for a long period of time. He sold his executive maisonette and he decided to move to MOR as not an investment property, but as in a homestay. Yeah. So then again, that is because that person was able to afford based on his income and the capital appreciation of the property. So I think it provides a good opportunity for people to look at it individually. One of the key words I still want to say is buy within your means. Okay, that's key important.
Okay, I think that's a very clear indication that for everyone is that, first of all, every one of us has different needs. So what's your aspiration? And then you have the means. You can think about it, because as long as we plan, some action can be done. If you never thought about it, we fail to plan to fail. So there's another question about new launches versus resale. They are saying that when we buy into a new launch, they are worried that when it's time to TOP or to resell, there's a lot of competitors, means fellow homeowners are also looking to exit the market. Will it impact the price because of many people trying to exit the development at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a demand and supply point of view. But the important thing here is this. If there could be one or two odd cases, you see, it is always human that people want to sell higher. And if they know, if they've been tracking, and if somebody bought it, let's say at 1,400, by the time in TOP, the average price has gone to, let's say, 1,007. Therefore, the bank is prepared to value the next resale transaction upon TOP at 1,7 or 1,750 based on people are willing to pay. So that being the case, even though you bought it at 1.4, there's no reason for you to sell at 1.5, because when the market price is 1.7, yes, if you want to exceed and you're prepared to sell at 1.650, your property will be taken up. Then the next question here is how many people are so desperate all want to sell at 1.650, knowing that the market can support at 1.7 and 1.750. So that's where you will have to have that little holding power. And it's up to you. If assuming during the TOP, if let's say more people are coming out, but you think you're happy with the margin that you have attained, there is no harm for you to exit and then reinvest accordingly. Or you just wait that out, this one or two odd cases clear, and the holding price will still go back to the market price, which is 1.750.
Thank you for the answer. So just to add on a little bit to that, because they are worried about a new launch when it TOPs, a lot of people is going to sell. Maybe we can play a game over here, over this webinar itself. Every one of you, if you own a property today, can you key a number into the chat box to say that how long will you hold it? None of you can see each other's answer. Well, I can see some response now. It differs. Some of you 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10, 15. I'm seeing that a lot of answers coming in. It's the same thing. When you're buying into a development, you never know when your neighbor's going to sell. Your neighbors never know when you're going to sell. Everybody have different plans. So there's not going to be a similar, means a congestion on the exit points. But main thing, why does the new launch price appreciate at the start? Because of intensity of volume. Why is there intensity of volume? Because there's one serious seller, which is the developer, ready to sell at a reasonable price to everyone. His only what I want to say is that his only intention is to sell the development. He does not have a life goal. He does not need to wait for his children to grow up. He does not have any other things else that he planned to except to sell the development. So with this one serious seller, right, selling becomes very intensive at the start, which is why it builds up transaction volume and then the price appreciate a lot over there. However, when the resale cycle spread out over the 15, 20 years, you can see most people get more comfortable with the property, and with an older development, it becomes maybe the last move or the next last move for most of the resale consumer out there, which they intend to hold for the next 10, 20 years. So you see that intensity slow down for older condominium, which is why some of the balance lease, if they get lesser, the price movement gets slower because there's no movement at all. So that was why Mr. Ismail talked about valuation just now. So coming back to the ABSD question, we have a recurring question. For a foreigner today, right, does it still make sense to buy into the Singapore market if they have to pay ABSD? Because you have a slide that you used to show at every single consumer seminar last year, but this year I think because of maybe market sentiment, we did not really show it, but there's a lot of wisdom to it. Sir, can you share that one about our overseas market and Singapore?
I think it's really huge, I must really say, even at the beginning of the year before the COVID, even during the COVID, the second week, or is it the first week of the circuit breaker, we sold 2 units at Boulevard 88, and we are talking about both are well above $10 million, and to foreigner, those who are people who are paying 20 plus 4, 24%. And we have another 2, Pearl Island, also during the circuit breaker period, we sold both more than 15 million. You see, from the foreigner perspective, they like Singapore simply because they look at it globally in comparison. If they do not want, if you are a mainland Chinese, if you are an Indonesian, or even if you're the high net worth Indians, or even for that matter, any other Taiwanese or the neighboring country, you have a choice. Where do you want to put your money to hedge against your currency dollar, a government that is stable, and capital appreciation over time? And that's where they look at it. Even if I have to pay a 20% in comparison to other cities where I can have a second home with safety, security, education, health, and they find it is still affordable. And especially for the penthouses, it become a very trophy item. They are not even concerned about whether it will go up by 20% or it will come down by 20%. They are prepared to enter. But generally speaking, foreign investors are comparing Singapore city as a city to global cities, and then they also look at the affordability and entry price. Therefore, when there are so many foreigners who have paid 20% more than you as a Singaporean, you can also understand some of these people, unless of course they're totally not so concerned about losing money, they are all going to hold that price or hold the property for a period of time.
Thank you, sir. I think that was a very good comparison. And the next thing about foreigners, right, they are subjected to not only the microeconomics factor, also the macro. Exchange rate might be in their interest, might be in their favor. I'm trying to say is that even though they may pay ABSD, but because of the quantum that they buy in at, the switching of that currency, they may have already earned back the ABSD. Second thing is also the low interest rate environment. Earlier on, you'll notice that we flashed the UOB slide itself. For some of the homeowners out there, if you are currently servicing a housing mortgage, do feel free to approach any of the PropNextions to look at how we can refinance your loan itself to a lowest interest rate. From last year, same time point until today, the interest rate has dropped drastically. In fact, if you are taking a $1 million loan, every month you stand to save about $400. Over a year is about $4,000 over dollars. So I think cash is important right now. Cash flow is important. So you can take some advantage about that switching of loan. Next thing, we talk about interest overseas. Like in Thailand, I'm just on UOB Thailand website right now. It's 3.6 to 4.2%. Singapore, now we are at 1.6. In fact, UOB is here. Citibank, the Citibank ran a promotion, but it's already fully taken up. It was 1.4%, almost fixed for 3 years. So this is the low interest rate environment that everybody can take advantage of. And then stability. Next thing about buying in Singapore, if you make a profit in property, there's no profit gain tax or something like that. Overseas
capital gain tax.
Capital gain tax. So if you buy something overseas and you earn something, you may pay 15 to 20% of your profit to the government as tax. So that might negate off everything. I mean, key thing, there's a lot of knowledge involved in buying a property today, which is why the real estate salesperson today have to be more knowledgeable than before. I see a lot of other questions coming up, but then it tends to be a little bit more to your personal portfolio, which we can't advise generally over the air. I think I will just invite my CEO to summarize today and give you a few more key tips on how you can navigate your property journey.
Well, thank you so much, Eddie. I think you have been really greatly helpful in trying to expound some of the points based on the questions raised and things like that and so on. All I'm trying to say here is take a very prudent approach. And as what those of you who keyed in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years and so on, I generally think you must enter the real estate property investment thinking that you at least are able to hold for 5 years. If for whatever reason the market sentiment wasn't to your advantage at that time of the 5 years, you must still have the holding power to go maybe maximum up to 10 years. Because within a period of 10 years, there is bound to be an upcycle, or there is bound to be some positive movement, a pandemic to be over and things like that. Don't go in a very short term view. I want to go in 3 years sharp, exactly the SSD over, and I want to exceed. And then if things are not in your favor, you might be stressed. So I always think property investment is mid and long term, and it does help a lot of people to build their retirement nest. And that's why we really like about property investment. And please do, because every person's needs are different. So whatever I said may not be applicable to each and every one of you exactly, but my salespeople will guide you. And therefore, I wish each and everyone a joyous journey in your property investment. But I hope to see really all of you on Saturday, even though it's totally not a property seminar. And I think you make it a point to say that because it's a 5-part series, they can hear me first. If they want to continue the subsequent one, call and get one more person to say, hey, listen to this guy. Maybe he may make some sense. If they don't like it, it's perfectly okay. For us, it is beyond real estate. We just want to make a difference during the circuit breaker, that every one of us take the right actions, the right thing, and grow and learn something. With that, good night. Wishing each and every one of you a safe stay home and all the best, and having a super long weekend. Come anyway, all of us having a huge long weekend, but with the Labor Day, you all have a deserved break. Yep. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Wishing everybody a good night. Stay safe. Hope to see you there on Saturday. All the slides and the video today is captured, so you'll be distributed to your PropNex consultants. They can explain further to you. So do grab a copy of that of it from them 2 to 3 days time after we do the rendering editing. Thank you very much. Wishing everyone a good evening.